Welcome to The Funnel. My name is John Shea, and I'm president of Alignment Group. This is episode number 274 of The Funnel. Good sales managers, a sales rep perspective. Before we begin, I want to remind you to head on over to alignment-group.com/The Funnel. Subscribe, and you will receive a coupon code for the online sales training class. We have this really cool online self-paced training class, chock full of documents and videos for your sales reps. It covers everything from prospecting to our sales methodology to sales process. It's very, very detailed, and it's with the coupon code, you get that for well below the normal price. And by the way, I'm getting some good feedback on it too, so check it out. Today's agenda, the sales rep angle. Do as I say, not as I do. Sales experience. Honesty is the best policy, and they have my back. So I want to tell you that I came up with this concept for a podcast when, recently, I think all of this sort of pops into my head based on what I'm working on at the time, but I'm getting feedback from reps on, their managers and things like that. Sometimes I'm coaching sales teams or training sales teams, and, they give me feedback, positive and negative. And I try to keep an open mind when I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to some of the things that are said. And then I start looking at my own experiences as a sales manager, and I start thinking about, what it was like for me, what some of my reps actually really thought of me. And, you start putting together, in my mind, from their perspective, what you look like. And I also go back to when I was a sales rep and what I thought about my managers and how they acted and reacted to things. And that's why I want to give sales managers here and business owners, if they're managing sales people, kind of the view from the sales rep, and maybe what you need to do to make sure that you're in a good position as a manager. And that's why I did this. This is not scientific by any stretch of the imagination. This is not something where I went out and I did a huge survey. This is based on my experiences. So the sales rep's angle is pretty simple. I want to see how they look at the world. I want to tell you how they look at the world from their point of view. And even if you're a manager now and you're formerly a sales manager, think about it from your point of view. They kind of look at it from the perspective of what's in it for me, right? And that's, people tend to view that as a negative. So I'm going to tell you it's not. If I'm a sales rep for a company and I work for a manager, my whole world, to a certain extent, is dependent upon that manager's ability to do their job. Yes, there's all kinds of factors in the products and the service and the support and all. I get that. But a really bad manager can profoundly affect the production of a team. So a sales rep's going to look at it and say, what value does a sales manager bring to me? What's in it for me? And if their whole world, and I mean their whole world from a financial perspective, is dependent upon that relationship and dependent upon how much they sell, they have to be selfish to be successful. They have to look at it and say, does this manager give me value? Do they bring something to the table that can help me? Or are they a liability? Are you as a manager a liability? Oh no, don't make me take them on a sales call. They're terrible. They think they're good, but they're terrible. They're not helping me. They go on calls and they don't help me. They hurt me. Now I'm gonna frame this the right way. This isn't about a sales rep who expects a manager to go out and close their business for them because they can't close it themselves. That's not what I'm talking about here. Or a sales rep that expects a manager to do their work because they're incapable of doing it. I'm talking about good sales reps, good quality sales reps. Why do you think most really good sales reps kind of stick to themselves? Why do you think they avoid their managers? Because their managers are bad. A good sales rep knows who brings value to them, and they'll take full advantage of that if there's an opportunity. But if they don't bring value, they run. Now I'm going to tell you, new managers, you have to prove it to them. So they're not going to just open the door and let you in because you're a new manager and you've told them all the right things. They want to see it for themselves. So you might have to force your way out in the field, and you might have to perform before they recognize the value you bring to the table. You might have to offer some really good advice on an opportunity when you're talking about your pipeline or forecast for them to see the value you bring to the table. They want to know you're not a liability. So they're going to do their due diligence. That's how they view the world. What can you do for me? Do as I say, not as I do. This is simple, okay? Will you roll up your sleeves and get dirty with them? Will you do what it takes to help them succeed? Okay? Will you do exactly what you teach them to do? So your willingness to jump into the fray will help them. So I think I tell a lot of different stories of my career, and some of them I repeat, and I apologize for that. But I remember my first day at a company, and I've spoken about a guy that's been very instrumental in my career, a good friend, a very good manager, one of the greatest sales reps I've ever met in my entire life. So my buddy Bill, my first day on the job, I was working for him. I was coming in as a manager for him, managing a small team. And I showed up for work the first day, and he's in a meeting. And I asked the receptionist if she could tell me where my office was located so I could get to work. So I went down to my office, I fired up the laptop, and I started working. Because I had to hire a team. There's all these things I had to do. So I just started working. He comes in. He's got a big grin on his face about an hour later and shakes my hand and thanks me. I'm like, thank you for what? He's like, because you're the first person that's ever started here on their first day and didn't sit in the lobby and wait for me to tell them what to do. So I could tell we were in a really good position there. But he said, come on, I've got some calls to make. There's some big deliveries going out to, they actually had to crane a piece of equipment, use a crane to lift it up and get it through a window. So he wanted to be there for that. And it was a former account of his that he had and turned it over to a rep when he moved into management years later. So he just wanted to make sure everything went okay, and he had to stop at a couple other places. So we did that. We went out in the field, and I watched him interact with the customers and his rep in the field, and I watched him sort of just manage the situation. And then when we were done, he said, you know what I really love to do? I said, what? He goes, I love to cold call. Do you want to do some cold calling? This is years ago. I said, you know what? I'm up for that. I like to cold call. Probably not as much as he did, and I don't think anybody did. But we went out and made cold calls together. So there was two things happening there. One was me looking at him saying, boy, this guy will get dirty. He's going to roll up his sleeves, and he's going to do what he needs to do to be successful. So he's not going to point the finger and say, do as I say, not as I do. He's actually doing the work. And I know where he got that from. He got it from the owner, because Alan was the same way. And he's looking at me saying, will you roll up your sleeves and do what it takes to be successful? Because there's no reason for you to be out here cold calling today. You've got other things to do, but I want to see if you're willing to take on that pain. If you're willing to do the things that you tell your reps to do, you're willing to roll up your sleeves and help them get dirty and get dirty with them, they're going to respect that. And they're going to look at you and say, this person is worth it as a manager. So keep that in mind when you're managing sales reps. You haven't arrived. It's not a time to sit back, put your feet up on the desk, and tell people what to do. That's not your role. Yes, your role has changed. Yes, your coaching is 70 to 80% of your time. No, you're not supposed to go out and close every deal. But if you want to earn the trust of your team, you have to be willing to do what it takes to be successful. Sales experience. This is where it gets dicey because of the old story. I bet you if you type into Google best sales rep promoted to sales manager, you'll get 50,000 articles and podcasts on how sometimes that never works out because the best sales reps don't always make the best managers, blah, 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 blah. Everybody tells that story. The truth is, I don't really know that. I've sort of pushed that out there at some point in my life. Okay? I don't know that, and you don't know that, because the vast majority of sales managers are not developed and they're not trained. So where is the real problem here? Is it the fact that you promoted your best rep, or you promoted your best rep and you didn't help them succeed? I just talked to a rep yesterday who used to work for me 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't know. Time just blends together for me. This rep has had a couple of jobs since then. 3, I think. Kind of moved up. Really good jobs now. It's actually moved into management. And has had 0 training since they left my company that I was VP of sales. How is that possible? From sales rep training to management training. None. 0. Nada. And they've been good companies. This person's made a lot of money. How is it possible? Okay, so just keep that in mind when I talk about sales experience. Then you might think, well, he's off the rails here. No, I'm not. Because salespeople want to look at their manager. What kind of success have they had? They don't have to be the best rep. Have they been through the wars? Do they have the relevant experience to be successful? So this is where it gets a little weird, because sometimes you bring in somebody, they don't have the experience in your industry. That's not what I'm talking about. Now, sales reps will use that because they're very smart people. They'll use that as a reason. This manager doesn't know anything because they don't know our business. It doesn't take long to get acclimated to the business, understand the lay of the land, understand how buyers buy in your industry, your products and your services, and move right into a good manager can easily do that. Okay? They want to know that you know what you're doing. Well, the only way you can prove that as a manager, you have the experience, you've been through the wars, you've had success, you understand their pain, is to go back to the previous conversation about rolling up your sleeves and getting dirty. Sure, you can put your numbers out there. When I was, but you got to be careful with that. Think about it in your personal lives. How many kids love to hear, when I was your age, right? Nobody wants to hear that. There's a funny commercial about people in therapy because they're becoming their parents. Same thing. They don't want to hear you boast about what you've done. They want to know that you've done it, and then they want to see you in action. So you have as much to prove to them as they have to you. Now, if you're an established manager with an established team and you've hired a rep, you don't have to go through that as much. But if you're moving into a position as a manager, or you're slowly developing as a manager, now you're peer-to-peer, these are the things that the rep want to see. They want to see that you've been through it, that you know what you're talking about. Honesty is the best policy. This is where it gets a little dicey, right? You can't just can't open the door and tell your reps everything. There were a lot of things when I had sales teams and I had managers. There were a lot of things I didn't share with my managers and my team. I think I had such good relationships with my manager and my sales team that oftentimes my boss thought I was telling them everything. Like, I'm sure John told you this. And they're like, no. Because I understood the difference between telling them things they shouldn't be involved with, right? Things that are company related, concerns that the company has. If it really doesn't, it's not something that I need to address with them, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to be transparent. I want them to know about things that they should know about. I am very upfront on their performance. They want to know that you're upfront on my performance as a rep. They want to know that you're going to tell me as a rep how I'm doing. So I've said this before. I had a boss that used to tell me to keep doing what I was doing. And I always said, what does that mean? You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Until it came a time that he didn't like what I was doing if it was something specific. And then said, stop. But you told me to keep doing what I've been doing. That's not upfront about my performance. That's someone who doesn't know how to manage, right? Who doesn't know how to manage. They're just like, okay. You have to be very clear about expectations, about how they're doing. Now, you don't always need to go to the negative. There are those people that always go to the negative. They find one thing wrong. Okay? God rest his soul. Alan, You could be on a call with him and sell $10 million, and he'd tell you about the 3 things you said wrong. God love him. He could get away with it because of who he was as the entrepreneurial owner of the company. Just a wonderful, fantastic personality. But that was his thing. As a manager, that's not really a good thing. You want to talk about what's working, and then you want to hit on the things that aren't working, things that I think you could do better at. People want to know how they're doing. You can't sugarcoat that. It's dangerous. They want to know the company's healthy and well and doing what it's supposed to be doing. You don't have to get into the gritty details, but they want to know that they're in a good place with a good company. They want to feel like part of the team. So you have to have some level of transparency. You have to be honest with them. You have to be forthright. You can't hide things, and you can't lie to them. And you can't manipulate to get what you want, to get the outcome you're looking for. I watched managers do that when they were peers of mine. I watched managers manipulate ownership, and I watched managers manipulate their team. It's a terrible policy. Don't do it. Eventually, people, if they don't see it right away, they eventually see through it, and you lose all credibility and all respect. Okay? People knew what to expect from me. They knew what to expect. And if I didn't get it, we talked about it very upfront. Very transparent. So that in turn created very strong relationships with me and my reps. I can't tell you how often I get phone calls and emails from former reps. Some people I haven't worked with in 15 years. Some just want to say thanks. Others, need help with something, and that's great. They trust me enough from that relationship to pick up the phone and call me or send an email. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but you're doing a good job in those situations when you're getting that kind of feedback. For me, I kind of knew that in certain areas I was doing well. Now, there's a certain period when I first became a manager, I don't hear from any of those reps. And I own that. I wasn't trained. I didn't know what I was doing. That's normal. You almost want to go back, 15 years. Say, hey, I'm sorry. Sales reps want to know that you have their back. So they want to look at the managers in the company and say, they have my back. My manager, the VP of sales, they have my back. They want to know that you won't throw a rep under the bus. You throw a rep under the bus in front of everybody or privately to them, they might be secretly giggling, but they also know, because maybe they're that kind of person, or maybe they're upset, but they also know that you're going to do it to them someday. They want to know you're interested in them and their career growth. They want to know that you're interested in development, in making them better salespeople. They want to know you're going to listen when they have constructive criticism, that you have their back. You ever heard the term praise in public, reprimand in private? I tried to do that. I don't want to make anybody look stupid. I don't want to try to call somebody out in front of their peers. It doesn't work. Somebody does something well, you want to celebrate that. If there's a problem, you pull them in, you have the conversation. And when the team knows that that's the dynamic, that you have their back, that's awesome. Now, there are those managers that think having their back means at all costs. Well, he really believes in that rep, or she really believes in that rep. Why? They like them. Well, have they performed at a high level? No, they've only been here like 8 months. Well, have they done anything? No. Do you feel like they're succeeding as the owner of the company? No. But the manager really believes in them. That's ridiculous. The manager believes in them because here's the data they're showing me. They're doing this, 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 and this. Here's the forecast. Here's the pipeline. It's ready to burst. That's why they have their back. Not because they like them and they believe in them because I'm supposed to have their back. That's a terrible policy. So just keep that in mind. So this is how sales reps look at you. Think about yourself in that role, and are you hitting some of those marks? And if you're not, it's never too late to change. You can find us on social media, facebook.com/alignment group, Twitter @ShayJohnR, and of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to contact me, jshay@alignment-group.com, website, alignment-group.com. Remember, you send me an email, I'll get back to you. And I'll get back to you that day, but I will get back to you. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, keep filling the funnel.